Merry meet beautiful beings. It's your favorite witch, Natasha Monique, and welcome to Miss Know-It-All. We are bridging the gap between spirituality and politics. Far too often I hear my fellow witches and other spiritual beings saying that they don't get involved in politics because it's too negative. Well, it's too negative because not the right people are in politics, and not enough of us are informed about the ins and outs of politics to really make informed decisions and make the changes that we need in the world. So there is information that's needed to be had, and there are spiritual gaps that need to be made, and I am here to help them go. Now, I have always been a nerd, very curious and wanting to know things, and everything always starts with a question. So this first episode is going to start with a question, and I'm going to go through with you my process of research and how I found the answer to that question. My question is, why is it that politicians can blatantly lie to us? Because they can. They can just blatantly lie to us. So started digging, going down the rabbit hole, and apparently this is considered essential. It's considered essential for politicians to lie to us. Supreme Court upheld a rule in April of 2016 that politicians can lie during political campaigns because such verbiage is protected under the First Amendment, our freedom of speech. Now, our Supreme Court basically is allowing our politicians to lie to us unconditionally, and they're allowing this to happen without any repercussions from libel laws, because there are no libel laws. Libel laws do not apply to politicians during an election. It's supposed to be just during an election, but as you can see from American government, it's not just during an election. Like, they talk shit about each other and spread lies about each other all the time. So now the Supreme Court says that, okay, yes, this is protected under the First Amendment, our freedom of speech, and libel laws do not apply because us as American citizens, we are free to vote for whomever we want to. So we are free to not vote for someone who we think is lying to us. But how can we know if they're lying to us or not if everybody's allowed to lie to us? Like, what the holy fuck? That doesn't make sense. So it's basically the Supreme Court is saying, yeah, they can say whatever they want to you, and it's up to you who you want to vote for. Like, you just vote for whoever you think is lying the least, I guess. So now that just brought more questions into my head. That really did. It brought more questions, because doesn't that fall into the type of speech that's like yelling fire into a crowded movie theater or something like that? Like hate speech, something like that, that's like detrimental to our democracy, because it does affect our democracy in a lot of ways. We are actually not making an informed vote. We're not making an informed decision. We're making votes based on fear. So we're being told that the opponent is blah, 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 blah. So we're like, oh, that person is horrible, so I've got to vote for this guy because that person is so horrible. But really, we're not making an informed decision. We allow the politicians just to say whatever they want. So how does anyone's vote actually count if it's being fed by the propaganda that we see on the media? When if you look at campaign ads, especially from Republicans, and I'm going to call them out. I'm going to call everybody out, especially from Republicans, though. You never hear an ad from a Republican that's, I'm for this, I'm going to do this for you, do this for you. It's always the other guy is the devil incarnate and eats babies' hearts. Like, they just say that, and they're allowed to. They're protected and allowed to say that. Now, at the end of the day, for the presidential election, we allow the Electoral College to really make that vote for us. It doesn't matter. Republicans have not won the popular vote in 32 years. We've had several Republican presidents since then who have won just based on the Electoral College. So how much does our vote actually count, and why? Like, what rule was overturned, and why was this rule overturned? Because really, I dug deeper, and it wasn't always like this. Back in 1949, the FCC put forth the fairness doctrine. Media had to present facts in a balanced manner. There was no such thing as this right-wing media and left-wing media. It had to be balanced. You had to give equal time to both sides, and you had to actually inform someone, hey, we're doing a segment about this. These are the facts that you had to be fact-checked. All right, you had to, there had to be receipts for what you were saying on the air. So now it was no one-sided media. And what happened? That started to get repealed back in the 60s. So in 49, it was affected like a decade later. A decade later, when abortion became law, boom, now it's actually there. So 2 decades. It's 2 decades strong now. A broadcasting company by the name of Red Lion Broadcasting Company argued that equal time impinged on their freedom of speech. They did this in 1969. So this was for 2 decades. We had free and fair and equal media for politicians. You could not slander them. You could not talk shit about them without repercussions, without libel laws coming after you. You had to have receipts for everything you were saying. You had to prove it. You had to have facts. You had to back that shit up. Here comes this broadcasting company saying, oh no, giving equal times to both people, that impinges on my freedom of speech. No, we don't want to do that. So they fought that, they lost. They lost and they kept fighting it. So all through the 60s, they fought it, saying it was unconstitutional, and impinges on our freedom of speech. Lost, kept losing. So we still, boom, fairness doctrine is still on point. We still, up into 1980s, we still have this fairness doctrine. So we still have balanced media. What happened in 1985? The cable company got involved. And they, with all their fancy lawyers, came after and said, no, yeah, it impinges on our freedom of speech. And what happened was, it was overturned in 1987. The fairness doctrine was finally overturned. This was when Ronald Reagan was president, by the way. So now 1987 is popping off. It's repealed, and there's the birth of conspiracy news. Okay, so since then, we've been able to create far right-wing media, far left-wing media, conspiracy theories, all types of talk shows, and just people who can say that they're news and say whatever they want to say without any type of fact-checking and any type of repercussions. Spreading conspiracy theories and lies. Republicans are like they've taken advantage of this the most. They run their campaigns on talking points that talk shit about their opponents. They never talk about what they're going to do for their constituents. Pay attention to that. If you're a Republican, pay attention to the ads that your Republicans are putting out. Are they putting out ads that are letting you know what they're for? If you go on their website, do they let you know what things they stand for? Are you checking to see like how they're voting while they're in office? Are you doing that? Because are they keeping their promises? For Democrats too, because Democrats can talk a good game, but then when it gets time for voting, where they're casting their vote, it really doesn't, because they're allowed to lie. They can tell you, yes, I'm for X, Y, and Z, and then when they get in Congress, vote the complete opposite way, and that's fine. Absolutely fine, because now you know they lied, so next time don't vote for them. That's basically what the Supreme Court is telling us. So now, they're protected by the Constitution and able to just screw libel laws and say, whatever to them. This type of deception directly harms the voting process and the democracy of America. So, how free is our vote, and then what can we do about this? So that begs the question, another question is really, how free is our vote? How free is our vote if the Electoral College at the end of the day decides the president? And how free is our vote if at the end of the day we're deciding who we vote for from presidents on down based on lies? And where does spirituality bridge into that? That's what we're going to talk about next. So the spiritual side effects of this is, by being given the green light to be deceptive, they fail to be impeccable with their word. Being impeccable with their word is one of the 4 agreements, as broken down by Don Miguel Ruiz. If you have not read the 4 agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, I recommend you do so. It is an excellent, excellent, excellent book. I read it 3 times already, and I'm probably going to read it 17 more times. It's fantastic. And one of the 4 agreements is being impeccable with your word. That means being cognizant of what you're saying and making sure you're speaking with integrity and with truth and being honest. And they're not being honest. So constant misuse of the word curses all who hear it. As a witch, I also know that your words are spells. So as you're constantly lying and spreading hate and vitriol, you're cursing all of your constituents. Everyone who believes it, you're cursing them with your lies. That's what these politicians are doing. They're cursing everyone, brainwashing them with their lies. That has to stop. This is why most of spiritual people I meet on my journey say they can't deal with it, because they can't deal with that. So the first thing we need to do is to constantly shield ourselves before we watch news. Just imagine that there is like a bubble of pure white light around you before you watch political news or dive into anything, or there is a diamond pyramid around you that is protecting you from all vitriol, so you can get the knowledge and information and still maintain your spiritual integrity, so to speak, and then act on it. That's a big part of it as well, is that us as spiritual people, we need to act on these things more. I say that because I feel like it's our duty to step up. A change needs to happen, and the change isn't going to happen with the people that are currently in government, because they benefit from the broken and crooked system. They benefit from being able to lie to us. They benefit from being able to spread conspiracy theories and lies and vitriol and hate. They benefit from it. So they're not ever going to change it. So the only way to actually make a change is to get them out of office and to get better people in office. So it's our right to protect the word and to demand honesty from the people who make laws that directly affect our lives. We may think that because, we're enlightened spiritual beings and, we're sitting on rainbows and unicorns and la la la, that's all well and good, but you're still affected by the taxes, by minimum wage, by healthcare, by how much, pharmaceuticals cost, by roads, by schools, by everything. Where the country that you live, you are affected by the laws that government makes. So as spiritual people, we have a duty to make sure that those laws are in accordance with the betterment of all humanity. So now, what can we do? So I've outlined just 3 little things that, because after doing all of this and getting all this info out, I'm like, okay, how can I help? What can I do? So you can do the same thing that I do. So this is what can we do? How can we do this? First, research. Just like I did, research. Don't blindly believe what you hear. Especially don't listen to shit on Facebook and just fucking bullshit news. Just pay attention to your sources. Okay? Pay attention to your sources. Look shit up and pick your resources wisely. The news that I listen to is nonpartisan news. I like to listen to grassroots news that is funded by the people, like NPR, like Democracy Now!, and like TYT, the Young Turks. All 3 of those programs are funded by American citizens. Like, we put the money in. They're not beholden to any conglomerate like the Koch brothers or the Murdochs or anything like that, where you have to speak my view and that's it. No, they are funded by the people for the people, and they report to the people honest news. And so I do like listening to them. And then you can research further there. When you hear things from there, the oracle that is Google can definitely, you Google something in there, but even when you're Googling, pay attention. You want to make sure you're looking at sources that are reputable sources. Reputable sources. So once you've got that research, then go on to be impeccable with your word. When you go on to speak to other people and educate them about what you've just learned and get into debates with friends and family members about what you've learned, make sure you're speaking from a place of honesty, integrity, and love. Like, we've got to understand that these people are doing these things, maybe because they're a little bit evil, but mainly because they're misguided and they're trying to do things that they think they need to do to survive because they're worshiping the wrong things. They're worshiping money and power, and they're worshiping things that they think can get them a better life, when really what they're doing is just pulling themselves deeper into a hole of blackmail and manipulation and solemn, and therefore having to be more manipulative and disgusting and nasty and evil to hold on to power, because that's what makes them feel good, because they don't really know how to love themselves. So you've got to have an ounce of empathy for these people. However, we can still boot them out and change the system. The system will not change as long as they are in the system. So we definitely have to educate each other on what's going on here and make that change. We can also hold those bastards accountable. All of their information is readily available. You can Google, who is my district representative? Who's the district representative for? And put your zip code in. It'll put all of their information up there. Their name, their office address, their email address, and their phone number. Call them. Check on how they're voting. You can check on what's the latest legislation. Check on C-SPAN. See how they're voting. Are they voting in accordance with you? And if they're not, get on the phone and say, hey, you promised me this. That's why I voted for you. And then when it got time to vote for that, you voted against what you said you were going to vote for me for. Hold them accountable and let other people know. People just vote for the candidate down their party line and then just don't pay attention to anything that person does once they're in government. They don't pay attention at all to what they're doing once they're in government. And that's when it really matters, is what they do when they're in government. So make them be accountable. Make them be impeccable with their word. We have the power to do that. Follow up. Are promises being kept? If not, voting you out, bruh. Information is in crisis because we allow ourselves to be manipulated. We really do. We allow ourselves to be manipulated. It's time for spiritual individuals like witches to step up and help humanity from the top. We've got to help them from the top. We've got to come in strong, and we have to make sure that we change the hearts and minds of those who are making the laws for us. Make sure everything is done with love and nothing is done with violence or hate in your heart. Change can be done through love. That is the most powerful and highest vibration that exists. And we can fight with love. We definitely can. So let's get on it and let's do it. All right. If you have any questions, anything else you want Miss Know-It-All to research for you, pop it in the comments and I'll look it up for you. We'll do a video on it and I'll see you next time. The next time I have a question. I love you all. Peace and blessings. Merry part until we see again. Mwah.